Do I need to do the formal good evening? Today is September 23rd. This is a meeting of the Littleton Station Committee. And we'll just get started with that, okay? So board business, meeting minutes of September 9th.
They're not ready yet.
They're not ready? Okay, do you have any idea when we might see them?
After town meeting.
In October? Okay.
When is town meeting?
October 17th.
Or
Saturday.
18th if there's rain.
Oh, that's right, it's outdoors.
What time? Is it on Saturday?
It's 9 on the 17th and 11 on the 18th.
So Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay, yeah. Okay then, so let's go to board member updates. Matthew, do you have anything to report as it pertains to Littleton Station?
No. Let me see. No.
Okay.
I mean, I have things I'm interested in discussing about the land grants that we got at town meeting, but that can wait until we're discussing those, I suppose.
Okay.
But I don't have any updates, me personally.
Okay.
We had a little bit of an update from our planning board meeting that Mr. Guthrie would like to be part of this discussion. He's on the other side. We haven't really included him. You weren't there, were you?
For the planning board meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was at the Affordable Housing Trust.
Oh, excuse me, it was Affordable Housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Affordable Housing Trust meeting. Oh, sorry, that was, I forget what you committee of mine.
Yeah.
And we spoke about it, about him donating the house and everything. One of the asides about it when we talked about senior housing is he's still got that piece next door. And we voted to keep on this side of the road to make it easier to get something to plastic and go class for town meeting. He just made mention that he would be interested. So I'm just making you aware of it.
So, and he's the one that has that, we don't have our, do we have our? He has the Durkee farm, right?
Correct.
Just that small parcel that you originally thought we shouldn't really.
The problem is really is Grimes Lane. It's
Right.
horrible. It's not even,
Right.
we shouldn't be putting any more traffic on that until we resolve Grimes Lane. But yeah, I think we'd be well served to leave it out until, I'm just making.
Okay.
He's definitely interested.
Okay.
What's the issue with Grimes Lane? Is it private? I know I've driven on it, so I know what it's like, but.
It depends on who you want to talk to. Some people think it's private.
Okay.
Some people think it's public. And we did prove it based on.
It's on the list of public ways.
It's just too narrow and they haven't changed the crossing at the end. It's too dangerous. I don't think adding any more traffic than we've already got out there is probably a great idea at this point. Especially a high density thing there.
Yep, and then I'll offer the counterpoint to that from a planning point of view. The place you want more dense housing is close to the commuter rail station. So if Grimes Lane gets resolved,
I agree.
then it's a great opportunity. Sure.
If we can do something with the underground and make it more a safer way, then we should definitely include that in.
Right. The first little piece of Grimes Lane will be shifted over a little bit and reconstructed when they do the Foster Street improvements, but that doesn't go very deep into Grimes Lane.
If you put on it, it's basically one lane right there, and you have the railroad track right there, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he just expressed an interest. That's all I had for an update. How about you?
Yep, no, I have nothing new because I think a lot of what we discussed at the last meeting really fell more into Joe. You were going to talk to Cindy about Life Care Center. Maren, you were going to talk to the consultants. So I think maybe we just
Follow up where we're at.
yeah. But first, let's public. So anything else? No other updates? So any public input?
Hands up.
Is anyone there?
Christine is there. She's checking up
She's
on
checking
us.
up on me.
Yeah, right. She can share.
Did you really
I can talk for days about all of my ideas, but you guys don't need to hear them. This is your job. But I'm super excited. I have no input.
Thank you.
She has no input, is that what she said? Yeah.
Okay. Moving right along. I wonder actually, can we switch this around? I'd like to hear before we talk about Grafton, I'd like to kind of hear about the outreach to property owners and the consultant responses because those are pretty critical. Are you guys okay with?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, Dave. Anything you want?
Okay. So yeah, let's.
I'll start off that. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to follow up on that with finalizing the warrant for the printer yesterday. I'm now catching up with stuff and reaching out to find out from the property owner if their receptiveness to talking to us is something that now at least my slate is clear to be able to do that, but unfortunately I haven't been able to get anywhere.
Well, that's too bad because that's a critical piece of information.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why having two people from the select board on this committee is important. So maybe that's something too, you could, next time you see Cindy,
Yes.
I mean, I really think we need to move on that.
We need to know where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, because without that,
Right, and there's always the possibility of an alternate,
an alternate.
an alternate committee member. If one member can't attend. then
Well, and I
somebody
think that's
else
one
attends.
thing that we should discuss given, you know, what's going on with Chuck that,
Well, I'm gonna let the selectmen decide.
yeah, because I think there's just a lot of information we need from the select board to move on this.
Did we discuss, was it this committee that we discussed the size that it needed to be? It was. In our first meeting that I attended, I think, we said now that it's no longer a working group, you know, do we want to add people to that committee?
Yeah.
And we decided no.
Well, we decided no, but unless we thought of somebody really good, that we really wanted to just get moving on this. So if anybody has any additional people, great, but I think right now we just need to fill the other spot.
I wish we could check. We obviously
Yeah.
check still on going on.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, do we want to ask if Cindy wants to be on as an alternate? Because I know she's expressed interest in being here.
yeah, I think we should.
I mean, you know, she has the connections and she has the background as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. You know, and that way we can at least keep this process
Yeah.
moving, because without this information, we're stuck.
And the reason we want you guys to reach out to people, obviously you had a rapport with them in the past, given what went on with COVID and things, so.
Yeah.
And then
Just a reminder, the report may not be that good.
Well, I know, but at least you know who to get, how to get to somebody.
Right.
And as I think I told you guys last time, they did reach out to Cindy, or, well, I think it was through Nina, to her,
Right.
just to talk about the COVID and resolving it. And Cindy wasn't really sure why they wanted to talk. And they had a meeting, and Cindy wasn't sure what the result of that meeting was either.
Because I spoke to Robert Long about it, to see if he'd ever talked to them, and he has reached out to him, gotten absolutely nowhere.
So maybe then with the COVID, that'll give us some
It's
emphasis.
a way to get to it.
Yeah. Okay, so,
What's the relationship between the Life Care Center and the land? Does he lease it to them? Do they own the land?
They don't all that.
All of it, okay. So if we wanted to put in a cutoff that we talked about, it would be purchasing it from them or them granting us a right of way or something like that.
Yep. And if we wanted to talk to them about more care out there, they have, obviously they have nursing home facilities, maybe they have an independent, we can talk them into an independent part of it, and I think they already have dementia part, but
Yeah,
added parts to there, that would make it more attractive to them.
got it. Because they are limited at this point, they can't probably
Yeah,
expand.
that,
Based on-
yeah.
Okay.
But everybody we've talked to, from the senior standpoint, wants to do what they call age in place.
Yeah,
right,
They
yeah,
don't wanna, they may wanna move to a community or whatever, but they wanna be in one property. Once they get there, they go as the needs change.
so you go from an apartment to assisted
Right.
living to, yeah.
Apartment to independent living to assisted living and
into the,
whatever,
yeah.
nursing home or, whatever.
yeah, it's kind of like what they have at Emerson.
Yeah.
They've got something real similar to that.
Deaconess has that.
Yeah.
They have everything at Emerson from, there's nothing wrong with you can live there, just live off the menu, do whatever you want, have your dry cleaning there till by the time you age. And they have different programs, some of them you own it, some of them you rent, something. It'd be nice to be able to offer a bunch of different options.
There was a place called Kendall in Hanover, New Hampshire, where I lived for a while, where you bought in basically at the beginning, and it was really expensive. I think it was $750,000 or something like that. But then you were there for the rest of your life. Like, there was no, like, you know, and they had cafeterias and they had like
Right.
financial wards and where they would feed you, and it was everything from, as you said, like a apartment you live in to like an ICU bed, basically.
What Deaconess did was you buy it at a price, I don't know what it is now, I think maybe it was $300,000 or $400,000. It guaranteed you a minimum of 75% of your money back when you die.
Oh, wow,
And you stayed there for as long as you
Yeah.
needed a place, and then,
that's cool.
yeah, so at least you knew you had they would resell it. And you could add the same thing, you could have any level of service that you needed there.
So that would be, we don't know if they're interested in it, but it seems likely they might be.
It would make sense,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that they could have more than just a nursing home there. They have plenty more land to do it. I
Or
think-
maybe they'd be interested in selling land. I mean, who knows?
Or right away through.
Right.
Who knows? At least you gotta find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's critical. Well, I will, I'll talk to Cindy or if you talk to her, with somebody, that's one of us.
You should do it, you're the chair, you should do it.
Okay. then will talk
I
to
just
her.
sent out a quick email and copied you to Lisa,
Okay.
asking her, you know, for a corporate contact or something. So.
Well, and I think also we want to figure out this alternate.
Yeah, that part of.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure Chuck's gonna be here much. I don't know, but
No, but it's not fair to Chuck, because he's got enough on his plate.
Yeah.
It's hard enough just being a selectman or being a.
It's hard enough just being,
Yeah.
not even having the additional volunteer, so. Yeah, I think. Okay, so that was the only property on there.
Okay, and then the other property owner update is the Gutierrez site up on Taylor Street, 225 Taylor Street, that open parcel that has the approved 310,000 foot office building that's never going to get built. The Gutierrez company reached out to me this week, finding about what what the committee was doing or what the town was doing next about the Littleton Station area study. I explained that you were going to focus first on the commuter rail area and then do the Taylor Foster Street intersection area next. I shared with him the frustration of the planning board members with the ownership issues.
Yeah.
And he said they're working to resolve that, but I think our conversation earlier that you're waiting a little while to let that resolve is
Yeah.
not a
That's probably the best thing anyway.
Mhm.
The last thing we need is that kind of thing to blow up at town meeting.
Oh,
what's the debate there? Is it who owns the property or?
Yeah.
Can you give me like a 30-second summary of it or not?
I would
It's
mind you
more of
the clean version.
more of a family feud issue.
Okay.
Let's just say we did have a police officer at the back of the room.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I gotta tell you, I didn't see it. I saw the police officer there. I didn't know why he was there. It was a brilliant move. And like, I had my hands in my hat, I tipped my hat to Hannah. She was ahead of her time on that one, definitely. Same thing. It's a family issue that's spilled over to the developer and the family.
I see.
The family can't even get along and they can't get along with
Okay.
the guy who has the option, who's had it for 10 years.
You just can't get it started.
Uh,
I mean, not that we want to right now anyway,
Oh, yeah,
right?
that was part of the thing. The market went soft right after he got all his approvals, and he's been, why build an office building, it's gonna stay empty.
Yeah.
So he's been keeping his options, he's been keeping his site plans and everything else, and the people that own the property are getting frustrated
I see.
amongst themselves. More than anything else, we had vocal family members at our meetings telling us we had no right to do what we were doing. Now what we were doing was renewing his special permits and site plans. Simple as that.
So it's on the other side of,
It's right at the end of,
Taylor Street.
it's right at the end of Foster Street, where it's
Straight,
right
yeah.
into the set piece right there. We just still own all the land in Harvard, or Boxborough for that, don't we? We have a big chunk of land that we put in part of that deal.
There's what a CR placed on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, we don't own property.
No, but I mean, it's,
Yeah.
I thought we had those, wasn't it?
It's just conservation.
It's actually, is it in Boxborough?
But it's in Boxborough, but we put a conservation restriction on it?
Put a, yeah.
How do we do that when
That's
it's
not
not
our
our?
vote was created.
Oh, interesting,
Yeah.
okay.
An early form of transfer of development rights.
We got them divided
Between
land.
towns,
We
okay.
Well,
got
it's-
them
but
divided
it-
land in Boxborough because they needed more for their,
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
purpose.
Right.
They did, put a conservation restriction on it, it's still there.
Right, and it was a parcel that should be preserved, and it's in the same watershed
Yeah.
and the same wetland complex, so.
But yeah, it was a good.
Yeah, good.
Some of the places did good stuff, but anyway, I digress.
Any other updates on property? No? Okay, what about consultants? Did you have a chance to reach out to UTL or?
I reached out to UTL and Jesse Yang emailed me back as soon as he could, and they are very interested. And that's as far as we got with the discussion. He had several questions, which parcels are we looking at now and what's the time frame? So my next step is to get back to him with that information.
Okay, and then what did we decide? Are we gonna reach back out to Dotson or no? Because they were already, they already were involved with Judy,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah, I could.
or we decided we wanted to talk to UTL as a form-based code. Can't remember.
But I had intended to email both of them, and I haven't
Okay.
emailed Peter Flinker yet.
Okay,
I'd be happy to.
okay.
Okay, I will do that.
You guys in agreement? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, now we can go back up to, let's review the Grafton 40R. Did everybody have a chance? I know it came over a little late. Did you have a chance to
I
read
haven't
it?
had a chance.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
So, if you had taken a look at the bylaw link that, and I'm just bringing it back up, that Marn had sent over, the whole basis was sort of like the same thing, and you'll almost recognize the same, or at least Christine will, because she's the only one that's on Zoom. So sharing to all of you without a device is a little hard. The same conceptual designs that you sort of see here was the basis for going to town meeting with a understanding as far as what we were looking for to develop around the Grafton train station. Knowing with 40R as far as the ability to receive 40S payments, and also given the town's prior experience with another 40R district, even though it wasn't developed under, it provided us with a rather straightforward process to go to town meeting because one, town already had adopted it. Two, we knew we needed and wanted higher density development, rental, or affordable housing plan had identified that as a significant need within the town. When I was new back to Massachusetts out of grad school, working in Wayland, but wanting to sort of stay in the Blackstone Valley area, there really weren't a lot of rental options. A broken up older home that had multiple apartments is where I sort of lived as a young professional, and we were trying to get towards, and I think like every town has a hard time retaining those young professionals, people that want to stay in town, newly out of college, starting a career, maybe even before starting a family. But in my hometown, which was right next door to Grafton, there really wasn't a lot of stock. And one of the things that in Grafton, when we did the affordable housing plan, was we wanted to try to really make sure we could identify a place for young professionals who basically you look at the demographics, it's like this, drop off, and then it starts back up again. And Littleton's pretty much the same. Almost every suburb is the same. So we were really looking at this area around the train station as a place for rental units where people could commute into the city, because that's where we lost a lot of our young professionals more towards the city, so that they could come back out, be more in a rural, semi-rural area around recreational amenities. So a lot of the same concepts that you came forward with your consultants for the Littleton station is what we're trying to do. And with the 40R, because of the requirement that there's design guidelines, we felt that by having more specifics as far as what we wanted for amenities, we required in ours like up to 5,000 square feet of devoted community space to tell the story of the Grafton State Hospital area. So not only are we talking about walking paths, biking facilities so that people could bike to the commuter rail, we want to have a component of that 40R development to tell the story. Why did all these buildings actually end up the way they are? Because you have Tufts Veterinary School as well as the veterinary hospital on what was the old Grafton State Hospital complex. So it gave us a lot of ability to then identify the look and finish, types of lighting that we wanted, and even where we wanted parking and amenities such as small, really service-oriented commercial. We know there's not going to be a Kohl's coming in there, but we wanted a coffee shop, we wanted a dry cleaner, maybe some sort of like office. That's what the 40R allowed us to do. And because it then gave a sense of certainty for the developer, i.e., you're going to be at 20 units per acre. We're not sort of negotiating up and down. It gave them a known sort of floor on what they could base that off. You could go above, but that's when it became an issue. Is can you accommodate parking? Can you accommodate water, sewer on the site, and other impacts like that. So it gives a level of certainty for developers, both from what the build out is going to be, but then also what the amenities that they're looking for, and also because it's not a special permit, there's not the discretion that if you come in with something that's compliant, that's really what you should end up with. And that's one of the things I think Littleton needs to sort of consider is that with the various tools that are available to Littleton's disposal, you can do it by way of a special permit, crafted by law, and all of that. 40R is another tool that sort of takes away some of that discretion because you spent a lot of time up front identifying what you want for design standards. And, I've seen design standards that then are much more detailed than what we had. We verbally described, because again, we had existing state hospital buildings that we wanted to renovate, and that anything that then was sort of infill needs to reflect that character. So it's sort of like, you're in an art class, you have a bowl of fruit. Your task is to recreate that bowl of fruit. You can sort of use that for inspiration versus someone comes in and without those, you may not get the character that the town's looking for. That's the special permit benefit, is that you can sort of craft that and have a lot more flexibility for the board to assist in that. But that's where sometimes there's a less certainty from a developer's perspective that less certainty means less predictability, i.e. more risk. So they can put a lot of resources towards designing one way to then hit a roadblock and then have to pivot.
And that's what we discussed last meeting.
Correct.
Was, the
Yeah,
benefits.
So I started to do my homework on the 40R. And I have a little more of a personal involvement, and I didn't know I had it. So I looked at a 40R that was in Plymouth, it's called Cottage Park, which I actually did work with.
Oh.
And it's perfect because it has train station.
Mm-hmm.
They knocked down the old Walmart, I think it was. That was there. It's right on the water. It's got a beautiful marina there. It's right in Plymouth, and it's like same thing, 50, 60 acres. Old warehouses, Walmart. I actually worked on the apartment complex. They built it. 155 apartments. Theirs is a 40R that they did. They probably approved it 10 years ago. They're now finally starting the phases of it. So it's in, the first phase was the houses.
Yeah.
Then they're gonna add the amenities that went with them. Lady Apartments and the amenities went with them. There's a senior component, and there's a regular component. They're gonna start on the next phase, which is gonna be, well, there's already light office space there. So they had it all, and that's what I liked about the 40R. It's all spelled out. It'll, like you said, it'll be a lot less ambiguity for a developer who wants to do it. We can craft it sort of the way we want, but I think I'm leaning more towards the 40R.
Yeah,
What's the downside of doing that?
Well, the town we won't have as much, from a planning board standpoint, as much input. Why are you smirking?
but we do.
If he doesn't like it, then he
What?
still has to say yes.
Oh, I see.
So, I mean, I was gonna put it out, something like that.
What, if I don't like it,
Right, if when the application comes in and if they design to the guidelines, if a planning board member doesn't like it for whatever reason, yeah.
But it still has to go through.
Right, if it meets the criteria of the request, then it goes.
So it takes it out, completely, not completely out of range, but for the most part, it's our interpretation of what the 40R should be.
But if you think about it, it also takes the subjectivity out, you know, which I think is not a bad idea. If we're coming out, and it also allows us to put in place design guidelines that could fit in with Littleton, kind of what we're doing in the comments.
What I like the fact is that we can look at, Cordish would probably be a great one to take a look at, because it's a commuter train station, that's what it was.
Or Grafton, yeah.
You didn't have a train component.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not on the property. It's, you're walking across the street.
Oh, right.
And that's the pedestrian connections that then go across the street. So,
Right.
and that's one of the nice things is that there are other examples. So you can say, well, here's one, here's another one, because at least they're all following a similar format. The challenge with the special permit is that you can look at the end product, but because you can't then see, okay, so the bylaw then leads to that end product, and off on the side, there's all the negotiations and input from other people that it's hard to codify.
Right.
So
we had enough problems with our
And not to mention, you did it the other day when you were talking about it, we don't know who's coming in after us.
Right.
If we have something that's, sounds more like Myron now.
Yeah, but I also think that if our goal is to get this passed by the town, that I would think that people, the residents of the town would be far more amenable to a 40R where we're saying, look, here's what we're specifying, here's what we're gonna get, then, you know, it's kind of up to the developer.
Well, it's up to the planning board and the
Well,
developer.
yeah.
You know, this,
Yeah.
I think it's, especially where we can show other properties where it works.
Right. And given that form-based code got passed, you
Yeah, the
know.
form-based code was kind of benign compared to this, right?
Yeah, but at least it still has the design guidelines.
The design really, they haven't really gotten the fact that the design guidelines are fine.
Mhm.
This is all of a sudden going to something we've never had.
Right.
1 acre, 1 house, you know?
Right.
Now we're going 20 units in 1 acre, and it's gonna be a lot of them, because this is a big project.
Right,
So this is really more than just form-based code.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
that was
yeah. But I just think,
easier to pass, I think, than this is.
Yes.
I guess, from lack
But
of
I
a better
think
way to put it.
if we can show people what it could look like and show them that we have guidelines in place, I think that will
The,
soothe some.
Yeah, I mean, just the design, when we were talking about the senior residential, the big word that everyone was afraid of was the A word. This is gonna lead to apartments all over town. It's gonna be everywhere. That's what everybody's
Yeah.
afraid of. So this is gonna be apartments. There's no getting, we're not hiding it. We're not sugarcoating it.
Right.
There's gonna be apartments.
But at the
There's
same
gonna be a lot.
time, we keep talking about we need more diverse
They're
housing
not-
stock,
they're
you
not
know?
supposed- yeah.
I think the difference with this would be, we can specify very specifically where the apartments are gonna be.
Mhm.
I think people were afraid of that senior bylaw because it was sort of interpretable by a lot of people
Exactly.
about where it could
Exactly.
go.
Right. Go
And-
anywhere.
Yeah, and this one, it's like, no, it's like in this little strip here, we're gonna have this many units.
It's right near a train station,
Yeah.
and it just
Well,
makes.
no, as we move forward, I think I'm more leaning that way. We'll see where we finally end up, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think it'll be good if we can use other towns
Mhm.
and especially other train station locations that have done it,
Yeah,
not just Grafton, there's gotta be a few more that, there's one,
Yeah. And actually, on the stationary page, Judy had pulled together several other towns, Wollaston and
Just
and
did one
there's
in,
examples, quick examples there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the Wallace. I was the Wallace. I did the affordable housing at the Wallace
Yeah.
stuff. I did the siding on
Mhm.
that. Yeah, it was some big old garages and stuff, and right at the, right at the
Cool.
exit, literally right there, the Wallace and stuff. Yeah, that's why that rings a bell.
So were you involved with reviewing the proposals, and were there any that were like, nope, we're not doing this, it's not in the spirit of the 40R or even close to it?
No, because I came here.
Okay.
But one of the main things is that, you know, as Mark said, there's examples where we can identify a variety of housings that where within one development you have a single condo and then apartment component. I think that's beneficial to be able to sort of lay out so that people aren't thinking like this is just one large apartment building or a bunch of buildings, that this is really going to itself become a community as well. And I'm just going to walk this around because you guys can't see it. This is something that a sub-consultant for Dodson Blinker, we also had a bylaw for a village, but we, it looks very similar to your form-based
Yes,
code.
it certainly does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's their example.
So and consultants will utilize some of the same things over and over, just maybe redraw it so it looks like their building
Right.
is someone else's. But you know, incorporating it just like we did with the form-based code into your bylaw then can sort of be a hybrid. The only thing that then it's missing is the possibility of 40S, which
That's right.
I think does provide a little positive spin as far as the people then, if they're complaining about density, the next thing they complain about is then all the school kids.
Mhm.
And at least it's a way of sort of addressing part of the financial impact that could occur.
So when we talked to Judy originally, one of the managing orders we gave her was that this wasn't just gonna be apartments, high density apartments. We wanted to see a total build out of other options. So there's gonna be some senior residential that might be single family, there'll be some senior that might be an apartment complex for renter or for buyer, whatever, condos or something. There's gonna be maybe some single family homes, but there's also gonna be an apartment component. So our hope is that we're gonna be able to have a mixture of different options up there. What we're really trying to do is kill the goose with one rock. We're trying to get all of them. We're trying to get our whole wish list on that.
But no 1 acre lot.
Right.
You know, it would be cottages, yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get everything on this.
Yeah.
That way, at least we have something. If we don't ever do anything else, at least we have this one, you know? I'm not saying that we may keep creeping up the road and stuff, but at least if we do this one and we give everybody everything they wanted, everything on their wish list. In one fell swoop, and we have 43 acres, and we have the train station, we have all this, and maybe that buys us some time or, you know, keeps us,
Yeah.
not that it's enough, it's probably not enough, but at least it's a good start.
Well, it's like 100% more than we have now.
Right.
You know, like, I think, it's funny, like I hear you on the school kids complaint, right? And I've been hearing like all of these people talk about diversity and how diverse housing is important and how like non-diverse Littleton is. And it's gonna be a fight between them and the people who are concerned about growth. Like straight, just plain and simple, like any number that gets larger is bad, right? Like there's definitely that kind of mindset here as well.
Well, we get it all the time. When we
Yeah.
do a subdivision, everybody wants to lock the door after they get in there.
Right.
That's it. They got here, they found the gem, they don't want anyone else.
Right, for the past 26
For the
years.
past 20, no,
And every community is like that.
And it's all like that.
Every
Lock the
place I've
door,
ever
no
lived,
more.
the same thing.
And I have to, so then I'm gonna use my 20-something years. My main concern is not about people coming to Littleton. My first preference is the people that are already here. The seniors that deserve to be able to stay here, age and place here, something that they can afford to live in. They paid their dues for 40, 50 years. I'm there with them first. I'm there with the young people that grew up here, that can't afford to stay here.
Yeah.
Let's work on them.
Yeah,
Then the third person, okay, but we're gonna worry about it. Then we'll worry about people that wanna try to afford to come to Littleton. But they're number 3 on my list.
does 40R have any requirements for affordable, capital A affordable? And that would be state, like, because we're above the limit or whatever, that would have to be state first, right, not town. Is that correct?
No, they're gonna have a set number on it. Are they 25% or is it negotiable? But
40R requires a minimum of 20%. Usually towns will go to 40% or 25% on rental units, so you can account the whole complex. You can have up to 70% of the affordable units can have local preference. Local preference is the wide range of Littleton residents, somebody that works in Littleton, and somebody has kids attending Littleton public schools, with the caveat that comes with the DHCD on advertising.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
and it makes it easier that we're not the ones that are saying yes or no, this is stated.
Yes or no, as far as as which, what's allocated to affordable and or not?
Percentages, well, we can adjust that.
The local aspect.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And the lottery process, it's all stipulated in the state regulations.
But it would be 70% local, is that accurate?
You can request up to 70% local preference.
Now,
But
what
does
happens
that
if
doesn't
you
mean
don't?
if we get, but that doesn't mean we get it? Like to Mark's point, like, let's say we want to take care of the seniors and the people who grew up here and the young professionals who can't afford to stay here. If the state comes back and says, oh, you get 6 total units that are like local preference, and we haven't done that, right?
No, but we can have up to 70%, so that's a big number.
Well, yeah, but I'm asking
A lot of
who makes
the-
that determination.
A lot of the challenges is you usually just can't find that many people, depending on the size.
Right,
yeah.
So, or at least that, aren't responding to all of the applications. And something like this, depending on the size, you'd be phasing it anyway. So there'd be the opportunity to sort of roll through and so that at least is one thing to consider.
I think that'd be a huge selling point.
But it puts the number, it puts something there, whereas right now we don't have anything.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a selling point that we don't do where we are.
Yeah.
So we're not all there, but at least we're all heading that, or we're looking at that as a viable option. So we need to suss that out before we bring it, obviously, to the planning board.
And that's where, from a zoning perspective, it's always easy to know, okay, are we just doing 40, or are we going to craft our own bylaw? You are able to then, have even different sub-districts within the 40R. You can have different design standards for each little sub-district. So you have one that's more for the immediate around the train station. You have another one that then, say, is lower density, almost cottage style, say, for seniors. And you change those amenities, you change the dimensions, setbacks, or how you do it. So there's a good amount of flexibility that then in crafting that bylaw, as well as the design guidelines that then, the town can utilize in order to then create more of a village area around that.
So why, I don't really understand why we wouldn't just go with 40R.
Do you want to vote on whether we want to?
No,
I think we're kind of going that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it just sounds like it's perfect.
And
That's why I keep wondering, am I missing something here?
One
Besides
of the other options would be
Do our own
an
special
overlay
Right.
or a special permit or
Right.
something,
and then,
which we've seen, is not necessarily 100% effective.
right, causes a lot of problems.
Well, no, the overlay that we did to the point is actually working.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So don't beat us up on everything.
No. I was.
No, I
thinking
think
more
we're all
yeah.
there. I don't know if we want to just start that way and head that way, or do we want
I mean, I kind of feel like we're beating around the bush.
Well,
I mean,
we're
it's
still early phases of what this board's gonna do, so
Okay,
I don't have a problem with staying with 40R and just working that way.
okay, and the benefit of that from process-wise, we have the draft in the report from Judy.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we'll
why don't we
take the
just
time to
start working
start
with that?
working through
Okay.
that. And-
And then realistically, UTIL may then just be helping with the design guidelines. And
Right,
that
right.
realistically is going to be the, where you want to spend the effort as far as identifying what it could look like, because it's not only what it could look like visually, but then also getting down what's going to be the right density, how much of it, and if you needed to then utilize additional funds to just look at any sort of traffic issues or any of that, because you're going to know more what you want. It's also good to then identify, well, here's what some of those impacts would be, to then identify, like, well, instead of, let's just call it was the first zone for higher density, and you had a choice between 10 and 15 acres, and you're trying to figure out what size. It could be driven by some of the impacts associated with making that decision. So having UTIL help identify where is that mix, what do we want to do, that's helpful. The bylaw itself is fairly straightforward. It's just then where do you want those dividing lines, and because one of the things with the special permit is that, well, we have to hire a consultant, and the consultant will tell us what the impacts are. You sort of have to do some of that homework up front.
So
Which is, I think, a
Yeah.
good thing also, because then you're going into town meeting, and you're saying,
This is
no,
Yeah.
here's the recipe for the cake, here's the ingredients for the cake,
Right.
you're gonna get the cake.
The only other thing about this is it's not like some of the other ones. This is single ownership parcels. So the thing by the train station, unless it spills over on the other side, those 43 acres, that's one owner.
Mhm.
So we can tell him, we're gonna want apartments over here, we're gonna want single family, we're gonna want seniors, we're gonna want a senior center, we're gonna want age in place over here, if we can get that component to work. So we'll be able to basically, like you said, put the whole cake together.
Right.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I did was I just printed out copies of the last two sketches, one from the prior, well, guy who thought he was gonna own it, and then the second one from the Long family on their ideas for it. So they're both very similar, take advantage of the wetland areas and the slope on it. These are both posted to the website.
Yeah.
Is there any provision for, like, how, what's the word I'm looking for? Can you change it? Like, how restrictive are the phases? Is there any way to, we learn something in phase one and we want to change something about phase two? Or is it like, nope, it's all here and the next 10 years we're going forward like a freight train?
The only thing is that, because it is a zoning bylaw, you change it at annual town meeting.
Okay,
However, you also have to then make sure that DHCD approves it.
got it, okay.
In Grafton, we had one, a mill that had burned down, and so in 2008, they were one of the first towns with 40R. Unfortunately, because again, it was an old mill building, it hasn't been developed because it's taken so long, and then the downturn in the economy impacted cleanup of the site. So it hadn't been built, but we were making changes with the property owner to the bylaw and about changing up some of the allowed uses to add some, and it did require going to the DHCD and making sure that they were okay, and then they noticed, hey, we realized when we approved this 10 years ago, we didn't establish the minimum number of units, and they said, well, approve that if you then put in the floor of 201 units. And we're like, yeah, that's actually in our narrative for the project that went to town meeting. We were saying that it was going to be allow projects 230. So we'll put the floor a little lower than what we thought was the floor. So that's the only thing. And that can sometimes be viewed as a negative, saying, oh, wait, you have to get approval from the state. But part of it is because of those 40S payments, there's an investment that the state's having to make sure that these are consistent and reflecting the state's smart growth goals.
Yeah, okay.
And it's also an area that then they also are more than happy to funnel Mass Works funds support as well. And being a 40R district, then gives us the opportunity if we had to do improvements, whether it's recreation-based, say recreation paths, traffic, infrastructure, housing choice, then, is something that makes this a lot easier too.
Okay. So let's go back to consultants here for a minute.
I just checked at 6:30.
Okay.
How are we on time?
It's 6?
It's 6.
It's 5 past 6.
Okay, we're doing good.
Yeah,
Back to
5 minutes.
consultants, back to consultants. I know I said earlier, maybe we should reach out to Dodson, but now I'm remembering we were just gonna reach out to Util, right? Because of their work on the commons. Was that what we discussed last time? Do you guys remember?
Who did Judy's stuff?
Dodson.
Wouldn't we go more with them because they're more familiar with what we have there and they've already done conceptuals up there?
It's up to you guys who you go with. Let me get,
Well,
I'll
I think we
ask
should
both
talk
and
to
see,
both.
and
Let's-
check their schedules.
Dodson has,
See what we can-
they've got more, they've spent more time, they have a lot more information already from the first thing that we did. Right?
Yeah, well, I'm happy to get information from both of them.
Let's
Yeah.
get both.
And you can just, if you feel also, one of the main things is producing design guidelines.
Yeah, and
So you're able to ask questions a little bit more focused. Hey, look, we're looking at pulling together a 40-yard.
Well, we do this one, we invite them both into our next meeting. Does that make sense?
Lauren?
We're meeting in 2 weeks again? You wanna do 3 weeks or is 2 weeks good?
You're gonna kill me. We're meeting every week. It's
I know, that's what I'm saying.
It's gonna be short Monday.
Is it? You
Yes,
promise?
I promise. I'm kicking everything a week off.
3 weeks
Let's
better?
do it in 3 weeks. That gives them time.
And tell them, bring them in, have them do a presentation.
Yeah.
Cake and ice cream.
Okay.
One of the good things, because we are not utilizing these cameras, we could actually just do this right in the multi-purpose room. Because this is maxed out at 6
Oh, okay.
for capacity, but we just go right into the multi-purpose room, we can spread out a little bit more and they can present. We don't have to worry about capacity since that's 17.
Oh, okay.
All right, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let me check whether they're available. 14th would be 3 weeks, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so see if they're available that date, and the backup would be the 7th.
That makes sense. We'll send them in.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think we have, anything else, Joe, that we should know about Grafton? Where would you take a look at it? It's
I will.
interesting, especially the RFP they sent out and then the response, especially from that
Yeah, that-
PSX.
The response was interesting because that was the last thing I did was the RFP, pulling that together.
Yeah.
It was really interesting then to see what came back. And that's I'll have to just share with you a couple pictures from inside the building. If you ever watch like American Horror Story, some of the when they had like the medical, like the hospital series, like this is right out of this. This is scary stuff going through this building.
Oh, really?
Pain
Wow.
feeling.
Little Silent Hill action.
Oh, it was. I was like, wow, no one get lost here.
Did they do a movie there? Because they did it in.
No, but there's people that break into old buildings, say hospitals, and put it on. I forget what it's called.
There's a name.
It's almost like spelunking, but it's not.
Yeah.
So they renovated, they demolished the mall in City Hospital.
Yeah.
Deaconess was doing it and they made a movie in it before they destroyed it. And when Walter Marcus was on with Deaconess, he was supposed to be in charge of the procurement of the building. Something happened, he didn't, because I was supposed to be an expert in one thing. They ended up doing some movie into there before they destroyed it.
Yeah.
But I think that the main thing is that the visuals and providing an understanding as far as what would be going to town meeting. That's where a lot of the legwork is, because a lot of the standard language that DHCD looks at about affordability and all those things, that's fairly consistent. it then is really getting at what do you want, and that's a problem for any bylaw. So, and one of the things, you know, we can then follow up to identify, you know, what kind of incentives are still available for, because there's incentives to also assist in preparing, but there is additional funds that we could leverage in preparing things that might be an opportunity.
Great.
Okay, so
Let us
set
know.
the meeting and, yeah, and I'll talk to Cindy and we'll get life care, figure that out and, okay?
Cool. That's exciting progress.
Anything else?
No.
All right,
Great.
adjourned.
Nice. All right. So you want to meet us?